Hey everybody, I just want to do a real quick live video today. I know it's been a while, didn't get any last week, and I apologize for that. It's just been kind of crazy and just focused on other things. But in any case, I wanted to just do one real quick one today. And the thing I was thinking about was just how lucky we are to have the body of Christ, to have family. That we worship with, and as I'm sure we've all been kind of missing that as we've been under lockdown, pretty much wherever you may be, we're under lockdown. And one thing that happened last Wednesday, which was just really cool and amazing to me, was on Wednesday I literally went down the list of our church directory and called every single person at our church that at least that had their name and number in the directory online. And which, I mean, really, that's probably something I should do on a more regular basis anyway. But it was just really good for me. I mean, it was great to just get in touch with people, to spend some time on the phone talking to people that maybe I wouldn't normally talk to, or not necessarily wouldn't normally talk to, but not talk to that in depth for that length of time. Because, when you're in the church building, it's just, especially as a preacher, you got so many people coming up to you, and you don't really get a chance a lot of time to have those in-depth conversations, and you can't have them, in the church building there like you could at somebody's house or on the phone. And so, one lady in particular, I've spent, 30 minutes on the phone with her, and I mean, I started at like 9:30 in the morning, and it took me, I don't even know, probably till 2:30 or so, 2:30 or 3, to get done going through and talking to everybody. But I mean, after, not seeing everybody for so long, it was just so good to, even though I couldn't see their faces, just to hear their voices again. It was really comforting and exciting. And then, so of course, the purpose that I was calling was not just to check up on people. I mean, obviously that was part of it, but also to let people know that we were starting our Bible classes again for Wednesdays, because we had kind of just put those on pause. And so the thing about our church is that, we do have a majority contingent of, folks that are older and not as technologically inclined. And so a lot of churches, it was pretty seamless to transition and pretty quick to transition over to online Bible studies. But for us, it just wasn't something that was going to be super feasible, at least not immediately. And I mean, there was just a lot of coaching that was going on in terms of trying to get people online and how to understand, even to open up something like Zoom or to log on to Facebook or YouTube. So I was focused on just getting things up to our website. So, it was just it was not something that it took a little while to get that going. And so we weren't having Wednesday classes up until last week. Online was the very first one. And so I was letting everybody know, that was going to happen, and how to get on, kind of help people out as far as figuring that out. And so anyway, time rolls around for class to come on, and I'm not really sure what to expect, because we've, like I said, I don't know how many people are even going to be able to do it. Like, I'm just kind of assuming a lot of folks aren't even aren't even going to be able to log in. But we ended up having, I think, 20. And just for context, I mean, our church is probably right now, about, before all this started, we were averaging probably 75, 80 Sunday morning worship. And we would usually have probably about 25 average on Wednesdays. And we had, I think, 22 logged in on Zoom. But then when you added, obviously multiple people on each computer, like me and Amber in the same house, elders, and their wives in the same house, etc. We probably had over 30 people logged in. And so it was actually probably more than we'd been having on Wednesdays. And I think that just showed that people were excited about it. People were ready, to come back. They want to study. They were missing that. They were missing each other. And so that was really encouraging to me, to have that many people log on and just show the willingness, and have so many people that wanted to go that extra mile and learn something new in order to study the Bible, learn how to, get on a computer, even and open Zoom, even if that wasn't something they were comfortable with. And I actually, kind of got teary-eyed talking about it last week when we were in there, just how much it meant that people were willing and desirous to get on and study in a format that they hadn't before, and especially considering the work that I put into class. So I was very appreciative of that. But the other thing I want to say about that was just how cool it was, after so long of not seeing and hearing from some of those people, to see them all, all their little boxes across the top in Zoom where you can, see their camera feeds, most people, and how like it was like there was just this energy. You know how you have energy in a room, but even though it was a virtual room, there was still sort of that energy and excitement. You could feel it, and you could tell that all these folks were so excited to see each other, to hear each other, that hadn't seen or heard each other in 4 or 6 weeks, and it was just amazing how, even though it was only virtual, how that togetherness was just so good for everyone, and how much more so that togetherness is going to be good for everyone once we are able to actually come back and worship in person. And so that kind of I say all that to lead up to what my point is in this Devo. And my main point was that we are social beings, that God designed us that way, that we are not self-sufficient. And as actually email that I got to, if you're not on or haven't heard of Gary Henry, he's a Church of Christ preacher who has several books out, but they're just short devotionals, and I get an email of those every day. There's 3 different ones, but Diligently Seeking God is one, and Reaching Forward is another, and Enthusiastic Ideas is the other. But the one from Reaching Forward today, was entitled Something More Than Ourselves, and it talks about how we are not self-sufficient creatures. And this goes all the way back to the beginning. In Genesis 2:18, the Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him," or of course, the helpmeet, right? The suitable for him. And the point is that even from the beginning, that God designed us as social creatures. God designed us to have relationships, to have fellowship, and that is nowhere more evident than in the relationship of marriage. And so he says that we need contact with other beings who have a nature that corresponds to ours, and not just contact. We need the many benefits encompassed by the word relationship. It is not good that man should be alone. It wasn't good. It wasn't good for Adam to be that way. And I think we often wonder, well, why didn't God just, make Adam and Eve at the same time? And I think the point was to show Adam, it's not good for you to be alone. And this is why I've made this other person for you. So he wanted Adam to see what it was like to be alone for a little while. And it's all of us as men kind of get that same experience before, that we are kind of on our own for a while, and we have to see what that's like, and in order to truly appreciate having that helpmeet and having someone that is not exactly like us but comparable to us, that helps us in our walk in life. And that metaphor extends outside of the marriage relationship into the church. We need each other, and one of the ways that we have that relationship, that we have that need met, that social need met, is through the church. And that's something that we should never, ever, ever take for granted. And I think that this episode that we're going through right now is ultimately going to pull us closer together. And I know that some have expressed fear, that people are going to get used to sitting on their couches, and that may be true for some. But for the most part, I think it's going to make most of us really realize what we have in each other. And what we have in our church families. And it's one of those things where, you take things for granted and you don't know what you have until you've lost it. And so this is really making us realize what we have in our social interactions and our fellowship with one another. And also just want to give a shout out to Jeff Carr and the studies that he's continued to do. I know I've kind of mentioned that before, but I just want to say again how helpful those have been. And I watched the one, I didn't get to watch it live, but I watched it today, a study that he had with Chris Emerson on Monday, 2 days ago. So if you have a chance, go and watch that. But they were talking about First John, and one of the big concepts there in First John is the concept of fellowship, and that we are supposed to desire one another, that we are supposed to love one another. There's a reason why God said, that the first commandment, Jesus said the first commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart. And then the second is like unto it, to love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, and those two things are so inextricably connected that John goes on to say in First John that you cannot love God who you can't see if you don't love your brother who you can see. You just can't do it. And so those two things are so closely connected. And so Jesus talks about them. John talks about them. They are so closely linked that we shouldn't take them for granted. And of course, that marriage relationship is mirrored in that as well. And of course, Paul uses in Ephesians 5 the marriage relationship to talk about how that mirrors Christ and the church. But I think it also mirrors the church and the church. The relationship, the me and the church, me individually as a person, as a member of the church. And how we are all, sort of married to one another. And that relationship, that fellowship flows out of our relationship with Christ. And one of the things that Jeff and Chris were talking about was how, if we want people to fellowship, if we want people to be at worship and worship together, maybe the first place we should be going is not Hebrews 10:25. Okay, right. We shouldn't forsake the assembly. But why? Why shouldn't we forsake these? We go to assembly because of our relationship with one another. That's what drives us there. That's what makes us want to be there. And if I don't understand and value that relationship, then no, I'm not going to want to be there like I should. But if I do value that relationship, then I'm not going to want to miss it. I'm going to want to be there. I'm going to long for that communal worship. I'm going to long for my brethren. I'm going to long to see their faces and talk to them and hug them. And all that goes along with that. And that is what comes first, is loving your brother and sister in Christ. And because of the relationship, the fellowship that you have in Christ, that's what brings us together. And that is so incredibly important for us, to not take for granted, to not forget about. And so, anyway, that's just kind of thoughts that I had, but one other thing that Gary does go on to say is that, yes, while that human relationship is important, it's even more important to see how much we need our Creator. Our relationship with one another is really draws us into a relationship with God. Whenever we see that need for longing or belonging, that shows us that our need for God is actually even deeper. Gary Henry he says that relationship, the one with our Creator, is the one we really can't do without. We may delude ourselves into thinking that we're getting along without Him for a while, but the fact is we do less damage to ourselves trying to do without oxygen than trying to do without God. Try as we may, we can't not need Him. Our need for God is the deepest thing about us. Whether it's relationship to other human beings or relationship to God, loneliness is the word that describes the absence of those relationships. And so the final thing that I would say is that, we need to be longing for each other. We need to be longing for God, building our relationship with Him. And as well as during this time of isolation, that we should be checking on each other, that we should be making sure everybody's okay, calling down that list, checking on those that may be more vulnerable, that may be more lonely, that don't have a house full of other people with them. They may not have a spouse. They may not have the kids running around keeping them busy. They may be a widow or something like that, and they need to be checked in on. They need to be shown that they are not forgotten about. And they just need to hear somebody's voice, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. I think so many times people, they hesitate to do those things because they're scared, and they think, well, I don't know what to say. A lot of times you don't have to say anything. I mean, that person is just going to be so glad to hear from you. They're not really going to care if the conversation only lasts 30 minutes. It's just knowing that someone is thinking about them. And beyond that, they are probably going to take off talking, anyway. And so a lot of times you don't have to do the talking, just let them do the talking. But there's just so many people that need our care and our attention, and we need to make sure that they don't fall by the wayside, and that they realize that we are thinking about them, and that we do love them. So make sure that we're checking up on each other. And that was one thing that really came to mind last week as I was going through, and it's something that I need to get better about is. And then we all do, I think a lot of times we think, oh, it's the preacher's job, he's supposed to call everybody. Okay, well, yeah, as a Christian, just the same as anybody else. But that's how we build relationships. And as D. Moman loves to say, preaching's about the people. You can do sometimes, I think, a lot more good just picking up the phone and calling somebody and talking to them for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes than you can, in a 30-minute sermon or whatever. So anyway, that's all I got for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. And if you are not going to, any kind of online Bible study, please do so. Take advantage of those opportunities. Take advantage of the fact that your preachers are going above and beyond, trying to learn new skills, trying to learn how to stream, trying to learn how to operate and try to teach class in a different setting. It is difficult, and respect that and thank them for that. And take your time to acknowledge the time that they've taken and join in with them in those studies, just as if you were there physically present in the building. But yeah, if you're not doing that with your own church, you're welcome to join in with us. Please do so. If you're a member of Silver Lake and you're watching right now, please join in with us in our class tonight. We'll be starting at 6 p.m. And if you need the link to that Zoom study, please get in touch with me, email, text, phone, Facebook message, whatever, and I'll let you know what the link is. Just for security reasons, I'm not posting it publicly, even though I have taken other security precautions, just because I don't want anybody coming in there that's not supposed to be there, or is gonna post anything that's there's just been reports of people kind of hacking those Zoom meetings, and so trying to take as many precautions as I can with that. But if you want that link, please feel free to do so. And if maybe you're in a different time zone, we're 6 o'clock here Pacific, that'd be 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. If you'd like to join in, please do so. I've got a couple more. I know I've been a little bit few and far between, like I said, the last week, but I've got a couple more studies lined up. So hopefully you'll have a couple more videos in the next 2 or 3 days. So please just stay tuned, and we will catch you all tonight, Lord willing. Thank you so much.